Are you nuts? It's going to cost us a lot of money. Get that guy off the air.
My excitement would be unchanged. I would feel just as excited if I did it or if Bubba did it. It's just the fact that, you know, we were able to win.
Yeah, Heather, it's been a rough go of it for sure. The last 4 weeks have been pretty bottom of the barrel. I don't know how it could get much worse.
NASCAR has more plot turns and storylines than Days of Our Lives, which is an old reference for folks out there.
You know, you never know when you're just going to have an off weekend.
I've kind of gotten the ability to have the platform that I want, and it is my platform, and I can speak to whatever I feel like talking about.
We were in the mix, and it makes it a lot more fun when you're in the mix than you are just, you know, struggling and trying to figure out what direction to go.
Yeah, it's tough, and sorry for being bouncy, the roads here.
It's like if you have, you know, the all-you-can-eat buffet every single day of the week, people are going to get tired of it, right? So if it's a special thing, I think people get more excited for it.
Hi, Bo.
Raise your hand up so she can see it. There you go.
Truthfully, even as a company, I think it was, you know, very head-scratching why at the beginning all four of us just went instantly straight to the back. We just really struggled.
Welcome on to the Backstretch on News 5's Heather Williams, and we are headed out to the Kansas Speedway this weekend, my home track. And it's kind of funny to say that because when I actually lived in Kansas City, that track didn't exist. When I grew up, it was basically just a cow pasture out there in Wyandotte County. The horse track was out there for a little bit, but the racetrack wasn't there. But since it was built, I was a NASCAR fan about the same time it was built. I've really grown an affinity for that place. I love that area out there, the Legends with all the shops and the baseball stadium and the soccer stadium. There's so much to do. It's such a cool place to have a racetrack because not many racetracks are like that. Most of the racetracks are out in the middle of nowhere, or in small towns like Bristol. Like Bristol Motor Speedway is really not in the middle of nowhere, but there's not a lot to do on that side of Bristol. So it's kind of just a neat little place to go, and I'm excited for NASCAR to be returning there. I will not be there this weekend, which makes me kind of sad, but it's all right. I'll be in Kansas City next week visiting my family, so I'm excited about that. Back to the racing as we head to Kansas. It looks like same old, right? You got William Byron and Denny Hamlin. They have combined for 6 wins in the 11 races so far this year, and Denny Hamlin looks red hot as we head to Kansas. He won this race at the Kansas Speedway a year ago, and the Toyotas have really dominated at Kansas in recent years. Denny and 2311, specifically Denny/2311, because, you know, Denny owns 2311, but drives for Joe Gibbs Racing, but the combination of those 3 cars, really 2 cars, because it's been the 44 car with 3 different drivers, and then Denny Hamlin's 11 that have really dominated at Kansas in recent history. So be interesting to see if that trend changes. Toyota's won the last 2 races. I don't see why it wouldn't change based on recent history and a little bit further back history, but we'll see. Could be an interesting weekend. We'll talk about that with our crew chief, Chris Curio, as well as our 2 drivers. That's right. I said 2 drivers this week. We got Tyler Reddick, who has a Kansas win, and Christopher Bell, who's very good at Kansas, who is a Toyota driver. So going to get their opinions on Kansas and the Toyota's domination. Also going to get all 3's opinion on the changes to the All-Star race, specifically the choice of tire compounds that they can run throughout the race. So that's going to be really fun. Great conversation. I love talking to Christopher and to Tyler. They both give really good insight into how their organizations work. They're both pretty honest and open when I ask them questions. So enjoy the conversation. Really enjoy this week's Backstretch. So I'm going to quit talking so you can hear from the experts. Let's get to it. Joining us now is our crew chief, Chris Carrier, who also happens to be the crew chief of the number 75 Food Country Truck in the Craftsman Truck Series. Chris, Denny Hamlin won this week at Dover. He and William Byron have now combined to win 6 of the first 11 races. Is the championship already a 2-horse race?
Well, it's kind of looking like that. I mean, I don't have any doubts that as the season goes along that there's going to be some more key players come into the picture here. I mean, come on, we got Kyle Larson sitting there. Martin Truex has been awfully strong at a few races. He was awfully strong Sunday, didn't get the win. Some other guys, we're looking at those Ford guys that are sitting back here kind of like running in mid-pack a little bit and can't seem to quite get the speed, but I'm still expecting a couple of those guys to emerge. Many more. I think it's a little early to be calling it that, but right now Denny Hamlin and William Byron are the two best guys. They're the two best teams. I'm not going to say they're the best drivers, but their team, which the driver's a big part of it, is they're consistently every week. They're the ones that are close to the top of the heap every week. They've won races. They performed. Can't argue with results. So this gives them time too to they got the momentum and they're going to work on stuff that they know that they're going to be trying to see if it gives them an advantage once it gets to the playoffs at the end of the year. That's what they're working on now, is pile up, get themselves in as good a position as they can be for the playoffs. The rest of these guys got to worry about winning races and get their cars better where they can keep up. So it's no doubt it's an advantage. I mean, good for them. I think they deserve it. I think their teams deserve it. They've worked hard. They're both of them are remarkable drivers. They're the top cats right now, and I think they will continue to be for a while until pack closes up a little bit, and it will.
Yeah, it always does.
It always
NASCAR
will.
announced that they will use 2 types of tires at the All-Star race. This question is specifically for you, Mr. Crew Chief, the crew chief hat on. Do you like having a choice of tires during the race, the softer and then the harder tires?
Well, yeah, kind of. I mean, my Don Henderson and Charlie, the owners, listen to this. They say, "Are you nuts? It's going to cost us a lot of money. Get that guy off the air." But I think it's kind of a cool thing, and I believe they're probably looking at it as like, okay, it's in the All-Star race, correct? So it's in the non-points race. It gives a little twist to that All-Star race at a newly surfaced racetrack, North Wilkesboro, which it's another thing that's going to cause some excitement, cause some discussion. And, if it works out well, they might think about this for down the road, because tires have been a big issue. That how much they wear. If they got a choice, it puts it in the drivers and the crew chiefs' hands for their own destiny or their own whatever failure. And, they do it in the Formula One circuit. They have their choices. I think they have 3 compounds.
Yeah, and they have 2 choices in Indy.
2 choices in Indy. So it's not like it's something like, oh man, they're out in left field. Where'd they come up with this? They're looking at ways. They're looking at ways to make racing better. And would this be an easy step for everybody? No, it would not be an easy step. But I think, in my mind, North Wilkesboro, the All-Star race, is the perfect place to do it. I mean, it's like I say, it's a non-points race. There's no championship risks. If it goes good for this and doesn't go good for that, I think it's perfect. I think, I'm kind of looking forward to it. I hope it works, and we'll see what happens.
You mentioned twists and turns. NASCAR has more plot turns and storylines than Days of Our Lives, which is an old reference for folks out there. Well, speaking of twists, let's twist on a little bit of bigger track as NASCAR heads to Kansas this weekend. The racing on the mile-and-a-halves have been amazing this year, and Kansas, well, in the next-gen era, and Kansas is like the poster child for this transformation of the mile-and-a-half. So what can drivers expect in the Land of Oz?
Well, it's her hometown racetrack, by the way, in case you didn't know that. But Kansas, I think, it's a mile-and-a-half racetrack, so speeds are going to be fast. Speeds are going to be up. You're going to run fast speeds, okay? There's going to be 175 mile, 180 mile an hour around the racetrack somewhere. So, the sensation of speed is there. This racetrack has, sat there a long time out there in the hot Kansas summers and the cold Kansas winters, and it's beat that asphalt down like hitting it with a sledgehammer, and it's gotten rougher, and the pavement's worn out as time goes by. They've left it alone. They've left it like it is. I think the drivers love it. What happens is, as that track gets hotter, and as those tires get hotter and it goes along, it gets a little bit slower, them cars bump around and Jew around and everything like that, and they're trying to hang on to them. And it makes, to me, it makes for really good racing. And it really puts pressure on the driver and the communication he has with his crew chief, his race engineer, and getting his setup, his balance, front to rear balance, where he can run consistent fast times when those tires run out and a racetrack gets a little slower. So I feel like this is going to be a good race. I think there'll be a lot of passing. I think you'll see a lot of comers and goers. And that's what we like to see. That's what makes it good.
Thank you for joining us. So let's talk about the last couple of weeks. It's been pretty good. You got a win a couple of weeks ago. What was that like, getting the victory and having Michael there and holding Bo and the whole 9 yards? What was that like?
That was a really cool moment. You know, just the nature of Talladega really leaves you with just moments like that, because it feels like it's right there within your grasp. And then in a moment like that for us, on the last lap, it looked like it slipped away, and then it came right back to us. So that made it very, very sweet. And then just, again, the obvious factor in all this is that Michael was there and he got his first trip to victory lane as well.
Was it nice to be the driver to kind of break his bad luck streak? Because I know that had been kind of a little running joke with you all, that when he shows up to the track, it usually doesn't end that well for you, for the team.
I mean, it is really cool that I was able to do it. But my excitement would be unchanged. I would feel just as excited if I did it or if Bubba did it. It's just the fact that, you know, we were able to win and take him to victory lane. I think just being able to share that moment, regardless of who the driver was that did it, for me, this is the part that matters.
Are you surprised at all? Because that's really interesting you say that. How quickly the team has kind of grown together, because you, Michael, Denny, Bubba, you all act like you've been a team for a long time in the way that you support each other and, you know, all that kind of stuff, but it hasn't been that long. Are you surprised at how quickly you guys all kind of bonded and came together for all the success you guys have had?
Well, I mean, you know, throughout our professional careers, right? Like, you know, I've known Bubba for a while, known Denny for a while. Michael, I got to know as this all came together. But yeah, I think we just share a similar mindset, and we all want the same thing. And that really helps bring us together. And I feel a lot of that same energy from the people that we have here at 2311 as well. So it's just helped us get our heads together and move towards the goals that we have out in front of us. And, you know, obviously we want to win more races than we have currently at this point in the year on the 45 and the 23. But more times than not, you know, our performance throughout the race, throughout the weekend, is going to put us in that conversation more times than not.
So speaking of winning more races, I feel like no organization in the garage area has got to be more excited than you all to be going to Kansas this weekend. This has been 2311's track. So what is it about this track that fits both you and Bubba so well?
Well, it certainly fits us as drivers. You know, how we like to make speed out of our Toyota Camrys works well at a place like Kansas. You know, and I think on top of that, the team does a really good job of giving us the platform, the starting point that we need to build on throughout the weekend. So yeah, I would love to win there again. You know, hopefully if we have another really good year at Kansas, win both races, maybe they'll just rename it for us, 2311 Raceway.
I mean, that's my home track. I would probably be okay with that. So I wanted to ask, because I've been asking drivers over the last couple of weeks about the All-Star race in a couple of weeks. I know it's a few weeks away, but they made the announcement about the tires, specifically the alternate tires. As a driver, what are your thoughts on trying that out at the All-Star race?
I think it's great. You know, I think when they tried it at Charlotte a couple of years ago, it was a good idea on paper. I think just where the car was at that time, it wasn't as big of a benefit as it probably would have been at a short track like North Wilkesboro. So I'm excited to see how it all plays out. You know, the amount of sets that we're going to have, the amount of freedom they're going to give the teams, I think opens up the opportunity for some mixing up. I think we all know it's going to happen at the very end. I think we all know if the tire is doing what we expect it to, everyone's going to save one set at least for the end of the race. But the rest of the weekend, it'll be interesting to see who, you know, what teams use it when to set themselves up for that final run.
Do you think, because you mentioned doing it at Charlotte a few years ago, do you think this is better suited for the short track, especially now where the short track program is, and that other than Bristol, maybe not so exciting racing, it adds kind of a little bit more of an element of opportunity, I guess, at Wilkesboro?
I think there's just, well, yeah, I mean, you know, Bristol's a kind of racetrack where I feel like the all-star format was difficult, because what makes racing at Bristol really, really good is, 100 plus laps into the run, cars start to go away. You're just racing nothing but lap traffic with that many cars on the racetrack. And I think that kind of hurt the all-star racing product at Bristol. But a place like North Wilkesboro, it's a short track. It's got some very unique characteristics that you don't see at a lot of the racetracks we race on in the modern era. So I'm really excited to see how this new surface plays into that. I think a lot of drivers and teams just have question marks going into the weekend. But the speed should be slow enough to where we can kind of dice it up and have some good racing. But because of how unknown the surface is, I think it will throw some of us for a curveball, and hopefully that opens up some of the parity we've seen on short tracks over the last couple of years, to see some people really move through the field.
Joe, have you gotten any details at all about the repave yet? Do you have any data on that, or are you just going to show up at practice and try to figure it out?
I mean, I know the teams certainly do. From the driver's perspective, there's only so much you can learn from that. Everyone at TRD, everyone here at 2311's probably already been working on it. I kind of work just maybe occasionally, I think 2 weeks ahead, depending on where we're going to. Most of the time I'm just thinking 1 week ahead. There's plenty of things for me to focus on my end as a driver. So yeah, let those guys sort all that out. And when it gets a little bit closer, we'll start to focus our attention to it.
Thanks for joining us, Christopher. I feel like you are running way better than what the racing gods have been giving you on the track. When you go through a stretch like this, I mean, obviously you already have a win, so there's a little less pressure than if you hadn't. But when you go through a stretch like this, do you just have to be like, well, it's just bad luck, or is there things that you could do to correct luck? I mean, how do you approach when you're going through a string of luck like this?
Yeah, Heather, it's been a rough go of it for sure. The last 4 weeks have been pretty bottom of the barrel. I don't know how it could get much worse, but a lot of it has been misfortune, and some of it's been on our part too. And you look at like Texas, we had a car that was capable of competing for the win for sure, and I spun out and hit the wall midway through the race, and we were able to repair it and get back up there into the top 20. But obviously it hurt our car potential, and felt like we let one get away there. So between Texas being on me, and then Talladega was just a wild one. Everybody was out there, riding around saving fuel, and ended up getting caught in a crash there. And then Sunday, the pile up at Dover. So some of it's been on us. Some of it has been just misfortune. But regardless, you just got to race through it. And like you said, our team's been performing really well. We've got fast cars. I feel like I've been driving pretty good, and it'll come around. So we're going to a great racetrack at Kansas this weekend, and hopefully we can get the train back on the tracks.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. I mean, when you're going through a stretch like this and you see Kansas, Toyotas are so good at Kansas. Does it just maybe give you confidence that we can break this luck up a little bit?
Well, the cool thing is about where we're at right now in my team, I feel like really any of these racetracks that we go to are places that we have the resources and the tools that we need to be successful, and certainly Dover. I mean, Dover last week, I thought that we could run really well, and Kansas this week, I know that we can. And then after that, we go to Darlington. So basically every track that we go to, I feel like we have the tools that we need to run well if we can put it all together. So I wouldn't be surprised one bit if we get win number 2 of the season this weekend.
So you talked about this on the Netflix show, but you're like an underrated guy in the garage area. Like nobody ever talks about you. And then here comes the championship forward. Here's Christopher. Do you like that position in the garage, or do you wish more people were talking about you?
I don't know. I guess it doesn't really affect me or my performance or anything. But and especially over these last 4 weeks, there's been nothing to talk about from the 20 team. But over the past couple of years, I feel like we have given them things to talk about, and they choose not to. They being, I don't know, whoever it is, but yeah. So certainly it comes and goes. In the last 4 weeks, there hasn't been anything to talk about. So we need to give them things to talk about for sure, and hopefully that starts at Kansas.
So you spend so much of your time racing. I mean, you're a racer, you're around racers all the time. Do you ever unplug from racing, or is it just always racing?
It's pretty hard. I love like dirt track racing. I grew up doing and participated in for a long time, and now I've got my own cars. So normally, if I'm not doing my NASCAR obligation, you can find me at a dirt track somewhere, working on my cars or just being a fan. So racing's definitely been my life, and I don't really have much outside of racing. So most of the time I'm consumed by it.
Do you watch any other sports? Are you in any other sports?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, I love watching NBA, NFL. Right now, the Oklahoma City Thunder are looking really good in the playoffs. So that's really cool, and I'll be keeping tabs on them for sure.
The home team, I love it. I love it. So many people take front runners. I love that you're with the home team. So I wanted to ask you about the All-Star race and some of the changes that are going on with that, with the tires. Do you like the idea of having the alternate tires, the All-Star race?
So I know they did that a couple years ago at Charlotte. And I don't think it panned out the way that they were expecting it to. But I wasn't participating in the All-Star race at that time. So I'm pretty excited about it, just to see what's going to happen. Hopefully the tires have a significant advantage in speed. And if that's the case, then I think it'll be a home run and a really, really interesting race. So yeah, I'm excited to try it for sure.
Do you think they needed to do something on the short tracks? Because other than Bristol, the short tracks have been not so entertaining.
Well, it's pretty easy to we all know what they need to do to help the short tracks. But yeah, I mean, certainly if they're not going to give us more horsepower, then giving us, I don't know, more horsepower and more tire grip are like opposite, right? More horsepower would create less grip in the cars. And, going to North Wilkesboro, they're going to make us a softer tire that gives us more grip in the cars. But hopefully that allows us to pass a little bit easier. And yeah, we'll see how it goes.
So for my final thought today, I'm not going to take a lot of time, but just reflect on how far the sport has come, specifically when it comes to injuries in Eric Jones. Eric Jones, you may have heard, has been cleared to race this week at Kansas, but he's not going to. He's going to sit out one more week out of abundance of caution. And Corey Heim is going to drive his car again this week at at Kansas. Heim is very good at Kansas. So I think that they kind of see this as an opportunity too for him to really show what he can do in that car. But I cannot believe we've gotten to this point. It wasn't too long ago that, we were lauding Ricky Rudd for taping his eyes open. Even a year ago, the black eyes that Ryan Preece had, everybody just thought, tough guy in the car, very cool. But Dale Earnhardt Jr. really kind of opened the path for drivers that were injured to be out of the car and make it okay for them to be out of the car. And NASCAR created this waiver system. So if drivers are injured, like Eric is now, he could still be eligible for the playoffs as long as he reaches all the other benchmarks to do so. And I just want to applaud NASCAR, the teams, the drivers for normalizing being hurt, because this is a dangerous sport and you can get hurt and you shouldn't feel pressured to get back into a car just so you can appease a sponsor or the sport or make the playoffs. So kudos to them. Kudos to Eric. Can't wait to see him back next week in the car at Darlington. That's a great track for him. So I know he's excited to return at Darlington, and can't wait to see what Corey Heim does this week. Thanks for joining us on the Backstretch. We'll see you next week.